Gerhild, how do you say Riet in German? Oh.
Okay, so a very warm welcome to everybody to our third session of La Transmission, Femmes en Champagne. My name is Gerhild Burkard. I am organizer of the International Sparkling Festival in Germany, and I am Champagne ambassador by the CRVC for Germany. Tonight we have three ladies again from La Transmission, and very welcome to La Grande Dame de Champagne, Evelyne Boizel, de Champagne Boizel. We go to Vitalie Taittinger from Champagne Taittinger, and then welcome to Charline Drappier from Urville de Champagne Drappier. So tonight we will talk about different things. We have had in the last sessions, we have diversity, and tonight we will talk about classes. We will talk about l'assemblage, the kind of blending, because your group is a blending as well. I think there are different ages, different generations, different regions. You are really representatives of the Champagne, of the different regions, of different grapes, and it's a diversity in total. So before we start in the details, Vitalie Taittinger, Vitalie, elle va, sorry, sometimes I speak French with French people, so excuse me again. So we start with the introduction of La Transmission. Vitalie, what is La Transmission? This is a group of 9 women, and explain a little bit what it is. What is your vision?
Gerhild, it's very nice to be with you and to be also with my two very good friends and with the people they are watching TV because it's almost like TV. No, and La Transmission, it's a group of 9 women. They are uniting behind a vision which is quite contemporary of Champagne. I think both of us, we decided that it was very important to really evaluate the diversity of Champagne, to tell that there is no, on one side, the big houses, on the other side, the wine growers and the cooperative. No, there is only people, they want to do an excellent Champagne to make people happy. So for us, it was very important to express this richness of Champagne through our own diversity. So now we are 9, very different. Some of us are from houses. They are excellent in the art of blending. The others are more expressing the terroir. Some of us are really doing some cuvée like art piece. So we are all doing Champagne in different way, and it was interesting to be able to express that with you. And thank you to give us this precious moment to express it.
Okay, I say cheers to you all on the screen because it's a different time actually, and I think it's always to say cheers, and cheers to everybody who looks us tonight. And yeah, we will start a sip. Yeah, you 3 ladies now tonight. I think the story of your it's a really special story of your life because you are not really started to be in your family estate. Your life vision was perhaps at the beginning something, your education, and so it was totally different. So I'm therefore very impressed that you have chosen your family estate now, that you are now really in Champagne, and you've grown up with Champagne. I think it's the milk of your mother to give it to you. It's in your blood. But nevertheless, you have perhaps you have had other solutions, other ideas in the former times. And so I will start with Charline, because Charline, she's the youngest of the group. And so I'm really happy because I know her family, I think minimum 10, 12 years. I have very often been in this area. So we are tonight in Urville. We have 4 regions in Champagne. We will change a little bit, but now we start in the south, because sometimes the south is a forgotten region, I think. But for me, it's not a forgotten region. I spent 2 weeks in the Aube in January. And I'm really always very impressed about this area, people, and it's not a typical landscape for Champagne, because you have hills and you have coves and everything. Sometimes you say, okay, where are the vineyards here? Because if you drive this along the small streets, and it really takes time. But then you find these little hills with Champagne, and you say, okay, here you are in the Aube, and we are here in the south. Here is Troyes. Troyes is a very nice village, village, and we are in Urville. We are about in this area, and here this is the Aube. In the north here we have Reims, so it's about 130 kilometers in the south of Champagne. And Charline, what is the special thing in the Aube, and tell us about this.
Okay, well, thank you, Gerhild. Hello, everyone. Thank you for meeting us tonight on a nice Sunday. Yes, I'm the happy newest member of La Transmission, and it's a real honor for me to talk about the Aube tonight, because it seems that I'll be representing the Aube. So it's a different world. I think, Gerhild, you described it very well. When you come to Urville, which is a village of 120 people, you really live like the rural life, like how villages were 50, 60 years ago. And the history of the region is very much linked with the one in Burgundy. So we're very close to Burgundy. To give you a scale, we're halfway between Reims and Beaune. So we have a different climate and we have a different history. And in the Aube is the history of the Pinot Noir, a lot of Pinot Noir. 70% of the Aube is planted with Pinot Noir. And it's also at Drappier, we're 70% planted with Pinot Noir. So the story goes back to the Cistercian monk 800 years ago, when the monk was called Saint Bernard came to the Aube, and he planted the area with the ancestor of Pinot Noir, which is called Morillon Noir. And we have one of the cellars that he built very long, like in 1152. So the history of the Drappier estate is very much linked with the history of Pinot Noir. But also the terroir is slightly different. So we have a different type of, actually it's not really chalk, it's limestone. And actually I brought very heavy stone.
Great.
Wow. It is real. It is limestone from the Jurassic Emergent era. And it's very dense in shells and mussels and things like that. It actually is the same soil that you find in Chablis. So it's quite unusual, because we have mostly Pinot Noir growing on Chablis, especially the soil of the Grand Cru of Chablis soil. And the history has been for a very long time that the Aube was a grower region. So most of the Aube growers were supplying the grapes for the Marne. And so when my grandparents started making their own wines after the war, it was something like completely crazy, very, very audacious. And I'm really, really happy to be part of the generation that is seeing the Aube wakening up and seeing so much change in our sub-region. It has very distinct terroir and distinct varietals.
So this is the thing. It's really a waking up now of the Aube, I think. Sometimes, and when I started to talk about Champagne, I only talk about the north regions. And in the north, we have 3 other regions. I show you on the map. Here is Reims. I already show you. There is Vitalie. She's in Reims. And Evelyne, she's in Épernay. She's here. And she has her house, her Maison. C'est vraiment, it's really at the Avenue de Champagne. And then we have here the region of Montagne de Reims, where we found a lot of Pinot Noir as well, and la Vallée de la Marne. And here you have the Côte de Blanc. So last time we meet members of this area. So this time it's Épernay, and you, Evelyne, you have different areas where you're growing up your grapes, and Vitalie, it's the same. And Charline, most of your grapes are now in the south, a little bit, I think, in the Côte de Blanc. But you have brought us something really special champagne tonight, and it's your Quattro. Tell us a little bit about Quattro, because I think when I came here, or when I started to talk about grapes in Champagne, normally you have only these 3 grapes: Meunier for red grape, you have Pinot Noir, and the Chardonnay. But everyone is talking about Drappier because of these special grapes in the area. And Mélanie Tarlant, she talked to us about these special grapes as well. But I think you are one of the first who really plants them, and you take them like a baby. You say, okay, please stay with us, and tell us a little bit about your champagne.
Yes, exactly. I chose this this bottle because once again it was to talk about the diversity of our group. And we discussed about what wines we should show you tonight. So you will see along the tasting that we really specifically chose things that are very different one from another. And yes, one of the things that I wanted to show was a Blanc de Blanc from the Côte des Bars. So it's kind of it was almost like a joke at the beginning. I think when my father started to envision this wine, he thought, okay, let's make a Blanc de Blanc without a Chardonnay. So that was the joke at the very beginning. And when he had already replanted grapes that were inherited from my grandparents and from their ancestors, but they were very, very residual. Like they were forgotten. You had bits of them, plants that even my grandfather didn't know where they were, because back then they were just pressing everything together and not really taking attention to what type of variety was especially in the whites, because all of those varietals are white, which is why it's called the Blanc de Blanc, even though it's not a majority of Chardonnay. And the idea was to kind of make a forgotten garden of the heritage of varietals in Champagne, because we thought, okay, if we get rid of all those varieties, they might not even live ever, and we will lose this this heritage we have from the past. So the very beginning was something that was more like experimental. And I think my parents thought of us like, let's keep that in our garden, and who knows, maybe we can use it in the future. And then the idea—
What are the names? What are the grape names? You have to tell.
Yes, all of this was a teaser, but yes, I have to come to that. So the Arbane, Arbane, is really the one from the Aube. So it's endemic from the Aube. It's kind of a very mystery grape. We don't really know who are the parents of these varieties. The only thing we know that it comes from not only the Aube, but the Bar-sur-Aube region. So it's really, really unique from here, which is why we own most of the Arbane planted in Champagne. Then you have the Petit Millier, which is another very old variety. And then you have Blanc Vrai. What we call Blanc Vrai is actually Pinot Blanc. And then you have Chardonnay. And the idea was to make a blend of a quarter of each. This way, each variety expresses in the same, we give each variety the same chances to express, which is why it's called Quatuor, has a double meaning. 4, Quatuor is 4 in Latin with 2 T, and the Quatuor like instrumental, because in a Quatuor, every instrument plays a big role. It's not like you can just put 5% of one or another. So it really is like a curiosity, because people are surprised, oh, you make a Blanc de Blanc. So it's but no, it has only 25% of Chardonnay. And
Chardonnay.
Yes. So the idea is to be reminiscing a little bit of all of those old varieties, but with a modern interpretation, meaning that now we have warming climate maybe. So it helps those varieties grow better, and we have an environment that knowledge from those varieties that help us make probably a better wine than what our ancestors could do with the same grape. So the idea is that. Yeah.
So if people have questions, you can join us. You can write us in YouTube. So I think it's a very interesting kind of evening tonight, because we have these special things tonight, and so ask questions, but you have to be inscribed in YouTube. So if you want to talk with us, and so for me, it is fruity on one side, and you have this nose of brioche as well. So how long you leave them on the yeast?
So it's about 2 to 3 years on the lees, but this wine is not vintage, because we cannot harvest those varieties every year. So there's a high proportion of reserve wine, 50% of reserve wine, which also gives all this almond notes.
Yeah.
But interestingly enough, most of them don't come from the reserve or the aging, but also from the varietal aromas of those, of especially the Petit Méliès and even the Arban. Yeah. Okay.
So we have in total 7 grapes we can put in champagne, but 99.8 or 6% are really these big grapes. So it is very, very something rare and special, and I'm really happy that you show this tonight. We talk a little bit about diversity, and we have a diversity of classes as well. Normally in Germany, a lot of people, or everywhere, they have these small classes here to drink champagne or to sparkling wines. But we think, please take a white wine class or a bigger class to get more volume and more expression out of your champagne. And Charline, she has a universal class. And why did you choose this class?
Yes, very good question. Actually, at La Transmission, we do special almost tutorial to experiment the different shapes of glasses for different wines. It's very interesting. I personally chose a glass that is semi-wide, not the wide, the like the very large one that maybe sometimes you can have for more vintage, but because it's still a quite steel, straight, chiseled Blanc de Blanc, I chose a rather narrow wine glass than what I could have chosen for maybe an older wine. And I chose still a glass that has a very pointy end here. This way it does help the start of the bubbles, which is a bit different than a pure white wine glass. So that's the reason why I chose this glass for the Quatuor. And it's also very lightweight. So it really feels like you only have the wine in your hand and not the glass.
Yeah, I think we have the wine in our mouth as well, and this is the nicest thing we can do for me. So we talk about diversity, we talk about blending later, because different types of blending, but we talk as well of a combination of food pairing. So every one of you, me too, we have something for the daily dish, nearly a daily dish, and for champagne. What do you brought us, Charline?
So for this Blanc de Blanc that has a lot of energy and high freshness and things like that, I chose to go rather in the sea, so more of a food, a fish-based food. And I chose very simple. I chose a salmon pâté, salmon rillette. Or you can also choose, this is more of the luxury version of it. It's a sturgeon rillette with truffles, so it's also very good. It has a little bit of fat, so it's really nice because when you have high acidity, then it makes the balance. But also it has the character to hold quite a complex wine, which is why I chose that. And you just have to layer it on a piece of crunchy bread, and then you have the texture, the saltiness coming from the sea, and the bubbles. So it's a good match.
It's a good match. Okay, so thank you. So it's easy because you are all busy women and you are really working hard. And So you bought something that's easy. You go in a shop, and so you have something for Christmas or for every day to not only with truffles, but only perhaps the salmon rillette.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
I have chosen something. I nearly can combine it with all of your wines because I like to make something to eat as well for champagne. And I have chosen. I will show it to you. It's from the trout. It's a trout mousse, and it's bacon. So, but with gingembre, with ginger inside, and with some special spicy. It's a little bit spicy from Indian spices. So, so therefore, it's totally different taste, and it's smoked salmon. So you have this kind of smokiness as well for this champagne and for later as well. So if we are going now further on, we go to Taittinger, to Vitalie. Vitalie, I have seen you, it was, I think in Germany, I have seen you everywhere when we talk about Taittinger, because you was the face of this house. You became the face of this house, but were not, you have done something, another thing. So it was not really your profession to be in your family estate. Talk us a little bit, or tell us a little bit about what happens, because you became model of the face of your house.
It has been a long way. No.
In a short version, please.
I studied art, and then I continued to work as an illustrator for a while. And in the same time, I was following, of course, the history of my father, who was working and who is still working at Taittinger for many years. And one day, the group has been sold, and he was super disappointed because it was quite everything for him. It was not only a job, but it was also a passion. It was the history of his family. It was the sense and the meaning of his life. So I saw him very sad for 1 year, and I saw him also trying to rebuy secretly the family company. So when he succeeded, it was for me a quite big lesson, and even bigger than what I was trying to do myself. So I decided that it was important, if he has done that for the family adventure, to be behind him and to try to help with my modest talent, not adapted at all to the champagne. And so I asked him in 2006, it was the end of 2006, if he would be agreed to accept me in the company. And at the beginning, it was a beautiful no. and I insisted a lot, and but very gentle. And I insisted a lot, and finally decided to give me a chance. And I have been the consultant of Taittinger. So I was independent, working for the house. So at the first day, since the first day, I'm working a lot for the company, and it has been that since the first day. And I was working in the marketing department, and we were doing everything, the boxes, the advertising campaign, and everything. And I worked a lot on the campaign with a beautiful lady. She was on a beach with beautiful lights and the water and everything. And finally, when he saw the campaign, he was not convinced at all, because he told, it's not us, it could be somebody else. And another day, I came in his office for another question, and he saw me and told me, Vitalie, I got the idea. And he proposed me to be the face of Taittinger. And I was in the company since only 6 months. So it was a big attack. And finally, I told him, yes, I agree, but you have to be the Comte de Champagne. So both of us have been on the campaign. He was he was on the Comte de Champagne campaign, and I was on the Brut Reserve.
Okay, so you have brought us a rosé. That's quite nice. So this is diversity as well. And once an evening, I like to open a bottle. So because it's easy and to show
Take care, because sometimes the rosé is a little bit energetic when you
it.
open
It doesn't matter. It's like me, you know. Yes. So chew. Okay, it doesn't matter. I will put my computer not so a little bit farther, but perhaps we can show how to open a bottle. It's an easy way. So you open a little bit this agrafe, the metal cap, and you put your finger on it here, and you turn the bottle, and you will see it makes a nearly very good sound. Check. You know, it's very nice to have this sound this evening. And so you explain us a little bit why you have chosen a rosé and what kind of rosé it is, because we have different kind of rosés. And so please tell us a little bit about it.
I have chosen this rosé because this is a perfect illustration of the house. You know, we own 288 hectares all around Champagne. And this rosé is made with every pieces of champagne. You have a blending of almost 50 crus. So it's a quite complex cuvée to do. And I love it because very often we can be tempted to work one terroir. But our typicity to be lucky enough to have such a big palette to play with. So this rosé is really the perfect illustration of what we can do playing with all the champagne. And it's also a good way to tell you that all the terroirs in Champagne are very interesting in the to blend. So it's also it's a blending rosé. The spirit of this cuvée is to have a wine which is very dynamic. You have the freshness of the Chardonnay, 30% Chardonnay, and which is like a kiss when you are beaten like that. You have a sensation which is very frank, and after you have the beautiful structure of the Pinot Noir. Which is also given by the Pinot Noir vinified in red wine, about 14%, coming from the Aube. So it's also a link.
She's fighting for the Aube.
I know Vitalie loves the Aube, and they have a lot of vineyard in the Aube. So
yes, I have a beautiful grape in Aube. It's my husband. He's from
Oh, okay. It's your jewel.
I love the Aube region, and our red wine is made by the house in Loche. So it's really for us also the deepness of this cuvée, the structure and the strength also. And you have also the Pinot Meunier. Which gives some link to all of that. So you have a rosé which is very fresh and in the same time very fruity. You have the impression of the fresh red fruit. It's very hard to say.
Yeah.
Yeah,
we can really smell it, this fruitiness, and but there is a little bit of tannins as well. I think perhaps because these grapes are from the Aube. I think I have the impression that they have a little bit more tannins than in the north. I don't really know, but I have the impression sometimes. And so it's a blending rosé. Vitalie, perhaps you can explain in some sentences what does it mean, a blended rosé? Because we have rosé saignée and we have blending.
In Champagne, we are very lucky because this is the land of freedom. I think this is the only region when you can blend a red wine with a white wine. And,
okay.
And for us, when we are, I think the Rosé Fort Taittinger is really a question. We would like, when we created this cuvée, to make something very different and very distinctive. So there is two ways to obtain a rosé. You have the rosé de saignée, you obtain the color with a maceration of the skin, and I do that shortly. And the other way is to blend, and you can vinify your wine in white wine, and you add the Pinot Noir vinified in red wine, and after this is really the game to obtain the good mix to have the color which is very constant in the time, because this is really a challenge when you have such a rosé to really be able to keep the freshness of the color and a stable one. And this is the second way to do a rosé. So we have chosen this one.
Okay. So if we are now going to Épernay, so it's the capital of Champagne. Okay, Reims as well, but for me it's a cathedral in Reims, everything. The food comparing. Okay, sorry.
It's very important because
it's very important. Sorry, yeah.
So to change, I did something with vegetables. So you will probably help me to translate, because I didn't. I don't remember the name of the grenade, but maybe it is the same.
These are the grains of grenade, a grenade pomme. These red grains, and I think this is very good combination for your rosé.
Yes, and this is served with beetroot, red beetroot, with a sauce with a white vinegar, some herbs, coriander, and just on the top you have a chantilly. This is a crème, a crème fraîche, a fresh cream. Yes, and some grenade. Very simple, but it works. It's very, very simple to do and very good with the rosé.
Yeah, and it's very easy to do it. So you can buy this batrave, you can buy it, and you can make it by your own. In Germany, it's now actually very fashion to work with this kind of vegetable. So I think it's an easy way for a lot of rosés of the combination. But I have forgotten something as well, because you have chosen another class, so a form of class. So perhaps you can introduce us. Why do you have chosen this class?
I have chosen this glass because this is a little bit what was expressing Charline. You have this part of the glass which is very fine, and this is a blonde mass glass. So you have something which is very precise here. This is a piqûre, and the bubbles are very fine, very thin. It's very elegant. This is also not very heavy, and you have after the middle of the glass, which is larger and which gives a place for the wine. And this one have a good structure, so it's important also to give some place to be able to express it. And after, the most important, if we want to keep also the flavors, is that the shape is a little bit close after on the top, so you can keep all the flavors and the dynamism of the wine, the energy. So it's a glass from Lehmann, which is the one we love at Taittinger. So cheers.
Okay. Cheers. Sometimes we have to say cheers, I think.
Yes.
Cheers.
Cheers.
But now we come to Épernay. And we have La Grande Dame de Champagne, je trouve, I think, because it's Evelyne Boizel. I think, Evelyne, the first time we met, it's about 10 years ago as well at Provine in Düsseldorf, and we have talked about it, and I was impressed because you have done everything. You managed everything, and you were really a businesswoman. And but it was not your first profession, and you were very young when you came to your winery. And perhaps you explain us as well what happens with your life in former times.
Yes, or it was.
And today.
No, I was born in Champagne. I was living in our family house over the champagne cellars. So but as a teenager, I really wanted to go and see the world. And when I left Épernay after my baccalaureate, I thought I will never come back. Just to visit my parents, but not for anything else. And I studied history and archaeology, which was really my Lieblings field. And my father never talked about, asked me if I wanted to join. Well, first, because my brother always wanted to join him after his studies, so that was said and no problem. I was free to do what I wanted, and even after my brother got a terrible illness when I was 19, my father never said no, follow your desire. And then my father, when I was 33, my father died suddenly, and I thought after this four generations who has dedicated their life to Champagne, and especially my father, who found the house totally empty, so nearly gone after the war. And they worked only without money. They worked during 20 years to rebuild it for my brother. And so I decided to take the challenge. And also I was a little bit, everybody, after my father's death, everybody asked me, will your husband come? And nobody asked if I wanted to come. So that was also a little bit.
So it's typical, I think, for this generation. It's always the sons or the men, and
But my father was a true feminist. He thought women must be independent, they must work, etc. So, but he knew I loved history, so that was really what I wanted to do, like education or museum. And so I decided to come with my husband, I must say. So that was, we came together. I finished first my museology years. I had been accepted in a nice master in museology, so I did it before joining my husband, and both of us knew nothing about wine and nothing about business. So we learned on practicing. And in a small company like our company, you are involved in everything, and you have no middle management. So it's also fascinating, because everything, when you have to jump into it, is you learn a lot, and everything is so interesting. And we learn from by practicing, but also from friends, other houses like the Paul Roger next door, friends from the family since generation, but from very loyal growers who did supply the grapes to our family since 1-2 generations. And so after a while, we gain our legitimacy. At the beginning, you feel very unlegitimate.
Okay. But you are really in the footsteps of all these famous women. I think. I think, because you came in, you came in, and I think it's something emotional as well. We remark, because you have taken the chance or the challenge or whatever. You say, okay, I want to stay in Champagne, or I want to come back. And Charline, she was in New York as well, and she said, I met her first time she came back from New York, or she was in New York, I think, 5 years ago, and so you traveled, and you have been in Paris, and then you come back to your region, and to support your family, or to take over the family estate. So but you have taken us something as well, and to drink.
Exactly. And, I choose the Blanc de Noir, because I thought it's nice. Today you taste a Blanc de Blanc, a Rosé, and a Blanc de Noir, and it's a cuvée I also like particularly. It's the first time, not the first time, at Boizel that we have a Blanc de Noir. a pure Pinot Noir cuvée, 100% Pinot Noir. It's of course a blended cuvée because the grapes come from 4 different villages where we appreciate particularly the vin clair when we taste them. And the villages we have selected are 2 villages from the Montagne de Reims, one from the north, Maggie, one from the south, Mareuil, and we have 1 cru, Cumière, which is really at the joint point between the Montagne de Reims and the Vallée de la Marne, which
it's about here.
A village where the grapes very near from Épernay, where the grapes are always very, very ripe, they pick always quite in advance. And to Charline, we have also grapes from Lérissé. And it's about the same proportion for each grape, but it's just we decide at the blending if we will have, what proportion we'll have. In this one, it's about the same proportion of each village. So 3 years on the lease, so it's 4-year-old, and it was disgorged, I think, end 89, and 2019. And
okay.
let me just open the bottle.
Yeah, you have to open the bottle for sure. So Blanc de Noir, that means normally red grapes, and this is
vinified in white.
Vinified in white, yes. And
you know, if you juice from the skins at the press house as soon as they are pressed, and I must say I'm always fascinated by the typicity of the Pinot Noir when you taste the vin clair, because they are more discreet. After 6 months, they are very young, very austere, still very acidic, and they are much more discreet than the Chardonnay and than the Meunier, which have more flavor. At the time, the aroma are very, very. You feel just beginning of the aroma. But you feel the texture is the finesse of the texture, but it's not silky. It will be silky in the future, and you have the texture of it, and you have a sensation of potential, a sensation of the future, and I cannot explain it. It's something you just.
But I think you explain it very, very well, because I think it's so emotional that you talk about your champagne, and I think this is worth that you have been the main part of your family house, because you have to fight for your champagne as well, for your product, and everyone in each way. So when I just tried it. It's a little bit fruity, but you have this, but they have this hints of brioche as well, a little bit caramel, and so I think because for my trout mousse, it was in the oven, so we have had some aromas of burned or something. So I think it will be very nice. I haven't tasted it because I just produced it before our session, and I will try it later. And so what do you have chosen for the combination fruit pairing?
I have chosen something very easy, because what we want to promote at La Transmission, it's an easygoing way of tasting champagne. I have just something, you have just friends coming by, you have always or you buy some raw ham. You have beautiful ones in Germany. I don't know the name here. I have some Parma and some Spanish ones.
Schwarzwälder Schinken. It means it comes from the Black Forest.
I roll it. Not too salty and mature. In my way, the match is fantastic with mature, like a little bit umami, the flavor of umami. And so I roll it myself for my friends on artisan grissini. And so it's very easy. Sometimes you make it with the friends together, so just before tasting. But you can also put them on some biscuits, some buckwheat biscuits. With a little, pardon, if I show the plate, they will all fall on my computer.
That's, that's life. We are not in a restaurant, but I think this is worth to show, and it's like
something
this.
easy. You can match this cuvée with the thing that with the beetroot. We can match it with a pâté. Maybe because of its ampleness, you can match it also with fish pâté, with sardine fish pâté like that, with a salmon, which more with spicy taste.
Yeah,
goes very well. But the champagne are so diverse, but they also match with a lot of diverse food, as long as you have the right balance of spices, because that can be always tricky sometimes. Yeah. So, santé bonheur.
Santé bonheur, oui. Cheers. It's great. So what you have chosen a glass as well?
That's a Riedel champagne glass.
Okay.
I must say, at Boizel we have chosen 2 types of glass for our visitors, and one is the same as Vitalie. This one we have for all our non-vintage. And for the vintage and the prestige cuvée, the Royaux de France, we use this Riedel glass. It's very similar to the one Charline has chosen, a bit rounder. I must say we did many tastings with all the glasses available, and you can taste each champagne in just one glass. You don't need to have one glass for each champagne. It's just that each glass enhance one side of the champagne. But of course, at house, we don't use 5 different glasses. We have one glass and we pour the champagne in it. But it's very interesting to understand how the shape of the glass and the proportion of the glass can enhance one side of your champagne better than another one. And so this one, because it's really nice and a round shape, quite large here, and also with always. And the proportion is between this and this is a perfect balance. Balance is a key word in champagne. It's a key word at the blending, but it's also a key word at the tasting.
Okay, so it's a good word now to start to talk about blendings, because when I when I worked for the champagne ambassador, to become a champagne ambassador, my theme was the blending assemblage, and I started to interview people and champagne producers, and at least it was such a combination, and I really was impressed because it's a mystery for me. I think it's to create a perfume and a painting, and you have different colors, and at the end you have to show something about your house and of your maison, and it's vintage, non-vintage, so it's reserve wines, non-reserve wines. So Charline, you will explain us a little bit what will happen, and then we make the tour. What does it mean, the assemblage? And it's a feeling as well, I think.
Yes, it's many things combined. It's a very intense period of the year for all of us. It happens over sometimes 2 to 3 months, and it's very rigorous. We taste every morning, especially my brother and my father. They taste more than I do. but yeah, the idea is to get a sense of the wine of the year, but also to see how they are going to match with the reserve wine. So you not only you have to taste what is the vintage of last September, but also how evolve your reserve wine. And then you will taste all of them. Well, obviously your palate at some point saturates, which is why you have to taste every day different batches. At least that's what we do at Drappier. And then maybe you're gonna have 3, 4, 5 glasses like I have now. And sometimes you're going to blind taste them, like in a dark glass, which is what I brought here, so that you are sure that the color will not affect your decision. And then first you rate different, not only you rate, but you describe all of the wines, and then you start discussing on what will bring to what. So it can be an endless discussion, but ultimately you will have to take a decision. Sometimes it takes 3 months between the time you have first tasted the wine, the fermented wine, which is the vin clair, up to the moment you're going to finally blend it. And sometimes the wine has evolved so much between January and March, so this is why you have to retaste all of the time. And for example, at La Transmission, we do a special tasting that happens in May during Le Printemps de Champagne, where we give access to visitors to the vin clair that we taste. And we have chosen at La Transmission to show the original vin clair and the final product. So obviously it's very different because the final champagne is not made from the vin clair that you're tasting, but it gives you an idea to put yourself in the spirit of the winemaker and how different the wines are. So I guess it's probably one of the more complex tasks that winemakers have to do, because for the same reason that Evelyne just said, it's so hard to envision the potential of the wine. They are very acidic, they are very, very austere, and you have to say, okay, this is what it's going to be.
I have been in Printemps de Champagne, and I tasted the vin clair, and after 2 or 3 days to taste vin clair, your teeth are because it's such an acidity. So it's a risk for the winemaker as well, because it's irreversible, and if you have make your choice. So therefore I'm really impressed. I have been twice during a blending in a family, and it's a big discussion, and sometimes it's like this, and when we talk, we have in the first session we have had Maggie Henriquez, and she told us about this, about more than 144 or 40 different wines. So you have to make a planning of this. So it's really a mystery, and it's for me it's a very hard job, I think.
Yes,
as well. Yeah.
Especially at Krug, I personally would go crazy. At Drappier, it's more simple because we usually blend a lot of the same varietal, because we have a lot of Pinot Noir and a lot of the same terroir too. And then it's a matter of exposure of each vineyard that may be a little different from 100 meters away. It's actually, Champagne is like Burgundy, maybe not to the same complexity, but still there are many, many differences between one vineyard to another. And we have to take all of this in one box and then make your decision. And ultimately you will have to use that. It's a plastic one. It's maybe not the most aesthetic. And you decide on the centiliters, and then you blend it. So I guess tonight I will make a Taittinger, Boizel and Drappier blend. It's all about
special. It will be the future. It will be the future wine.
The trio.
Yeah.
It's not a quatuor, it's a trio.
I like that.
Yeah, because in Drappier, I know you have a lot of reserve wines in wooden cases in different sizes. So this is a question as well: which kind of reserve wines you decide? And once I have done a tasting in your house with we have done our replanning with the dosage, and this was a challenge as well. So you have this blending, and at the end the dosage. And with which kind of wines do you do the dosage at the end? So it's a really, really challenge to make champagne.
Exactly. This is different. These are steps that are added to a normal, I would say vin tranquille. These are added to it. So and then you have to learn how to work with new oak barrels, like how to deal with a new oak barrel and how to deal with a larger maybe oak barrel that has 10 years already. And then you have to take this decision, taking all of this into account. So it's a great complexity, and at the same time keeping in mind maybe we want the style of the house. So it's not like you're going to take a decision that is you can do whatever you want. Of course you do whatever you want, but you have the style of the house. At Drappier we have pretty finished, and you have to keep that in mind. And in that, my father and my grandfather, who is still tasting with us, is very important in knowing where we come from, to make sure our generation, you know, is not going in different, like in.
Yeah, but sometimes there's a change in the generation as well, and I think in the taste of champagne as well. So I think it can be, it can be not a solution, but it is something for the future. So therefore, you have to discuss. And I think everyone, the younger generation, has another taste than the older ones, and. I think it's like this, you know, between the tradition and the future and the vision. So it's not easy. So if we are going further on to Taittinger, Vitalie, your big house, you are not. Charline, you have perhaps how many hectares do you have? You have your own wines, and you buy some wines.
We own 60 hectares, and then we farm another 50 hectares, and then we buy approximately 40 hectares. So it's but
okay.
Yeah, we're small, definitely.
Yeah. And what happens in Taittinger? It's a bigger house, and
but it's funny because you were talking about future flexibility in a way. And it's true that in a big house, you don't have this flexibility because each cuvée is a pillar. And when you organize even the harvest, the way you will hide new cru when you will buy growers grapes and everything, you have your cuvées in mind, and this is something you will improve. Always what you are doing with your blending, you can be precise and more precise, but after changing, it's a very long task. So today for me it's a question, because my father gave me this honor to be the president of the house. So it's always a question. Of course, for me, the style of the house is something we have to carry with a lot of humility, because the people, they buy Taittinger with this style, which is very precise and which is our style. And I don't want to be, don't want to put my face on everything in Taittinger, on my generation face. So it's more for me, the way we are creating cuvée, it has to be a real history, a real story. It has to make sense. But after, it's not a game to make you pleasure. But of course, you are tempted, because you would like to do the cuvée you would love with some grapes you prefer, with some terroir you want to work with. But it's big. You have a kind of inertia. And after, when we are talking about the assemblage, for us, I'm not the cellar master, so I'm not in the process every day. It's a little bit the same than Charline, but every week we are tasting, and it's a large group. It's the direction group, and each one gives his own point of view. We have not necessarily the legacy of somebody who studied to be an enologist or something like that. But it's very important for us to include the advice of all the people that are working for Taittinger. Me, personally, I represent the vision of the family, the consistency of the style. Maybe also I have an approach which is sensitive due to what I have done before. Yeah. But after, it's very important also to have the advice of the market, not to follow them, but to hear what is happening in real time everywhere in the world. And at the end, the final word is probably for the architect of the wine and the cellar masters. Because for me, the wine is done, but for everybody, since at the beginning in the viticulture, in the way you will cultivate your own vineyard, in the way you will follow the people where you buy grapes, in the way it's a succession of actions to be precise in the style and to obtain finally the blending you want, the characters of your wines. So.
Yeah. So do you think that there is sometimes a change in the smaller in smaller wineries? I think it's easier for sure than in the big brands. And but do you think there is a change, or that people, because there's a new generation? Last time we talked about the dosage, perhaps a little bit more Brut Nature, Extra Brut, but perhaps the younger generation has another kind of tasting, or they combined other things, perhaps a hamburger with a glass of champagne or whatever, you know.
But it's true that the dosage, it's always a question, a journalist question, to be honest. But for example, for us, the dosage is not a question. When we have a Brut Nature, when we have an Extra Brut, it's not... the question is not, it's not dosed. The question is, it's a very good wine. We feel the texture, we feel the vivacity, we are on the spot.
Okay.
And this is the same for every wine. The question never has to be the dosage. And to be honest, when you are doing the adjustments of the dosage, this exercise when you are tasting with the cellar master, this is very hard, and very often people they don't find the one which is the less dosed. They exchange totally. So the question of the dosage for me is really a cellar master question and an architect of terroirs question, because the project wine has to be defined at the beginning, and the dosage has to be thought at the beginning of the cuvée. When you are blending the terroirs, when you want some richness, you will take some terroirs which are very with a special exposition to the sun and everything. You will take the one which gives the grapes the most bodied, or I don't know what is your project, but you are thinking to the dosage at the beginning. It's my advice.
But it's a part of the blending as well. So we come now to Evelyne, because Evelyne, when we have our first talk last week, what about we will talk about, and it was an emotional thing, and for Evelyne in your house to talk about the assemblage, the blending. So what happens in your house?
But it's a bit different in size. We are in between Drappier and Taittinger. So we are really a house of champagne. So we own just a few hectares on champagne, a little piece in the Haut, and we buy by wine growers all the others, and we have very close contact and very close links to our growers. And just to come back to my story, of course, in my case, there was absolutely no transmission. So I had to learn. So I didn't learn how to blend from my father, and we had at that time no enologist, no cellar master. In a middle-sized house, you had no enologist, and it was the head of the house who did these 3 analyses that you did 50 years ago. Enology was not so difficult as today, and so we learned how to by practicing, and also by the most difficult thing is to have confidence in your intuition. And that's really very hard. And I must say, at the beginning, our objective was not to keep the style of the house, because the wine you taste, the champagne you taste, they are already champagne. They have the mousse. They are at least 4 years old or more for different cuvées. So it's very difficult when you have no background to compare, to follow a style from a champagne which is on the market, which is and the young wines which are just 6 months old. So the only solution is to follow your feelings and to try to do the best as you can, which is that everybody does when you do a blending, of course. And you have nothing can help you, because no analysis can help you. It's not a science. It's just
an emotion. It's an emotion.
Emotion, and it's something you try, you bet. And what you are looking for is really a balance. The balance, but the balance in all different. It's because you have a huge diversity. From the grape, from the different cru, from the reserve wine, from the age, a little bit like in our group, diversity. And you want to have harmony, because harmony and balance, it's exactly the same word. And you have to find this harmony between the cepage, between the cru, between the different part of the tasting, the nose, the taste in the mouth, the finish, and it's just for me, because I didn't learn it. So for me, it's really a question of feeling. And when we try, what we wanted to have the best expression possible, and we have wines which have a wonderful future, and we must just find the way that they will express it.
And today you are still, today it's your sons, they take care of the estates, and today you are still in the team of tasting.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, but for us, the tasting, when we are more now, we are 4, 5, or 6 when we do the blendings, and but for us there have been discussions. Mainly about the color of the rosé, I must say, because I was always anxious. I always found that it was too pink at the blend, because it's very pink when you blend it, and you know it will change its age. But I was always very, very anxious about the color of the rosé. But I think for us it's mainly an exercise of which is very calm, very austere also. And when some days it's not a good day, so you start another day, because you cannot impose yourself, force you to find the right proportions. But it's more like, I would compare it with it's a bit too much, but it's in one part it's a kind of meditation. You just let the wine get in.
It's yoga for your mouth and for your body and everything. Yeah, I think you have to. Yeah, I really can imagine. You have to taste. You have to feel. You have to think about it. And so this is. I think this is the most important thing.
The best is not to think too much, but let the feelings come. And after that, it's really like Charline said, with a big glass, they prove it. It's really you try. So of course you don't start from nothing. You start with your usual proportion, and then you adapt it to the quality of the year, to the different reserve wines we have. At Boizel, we keep the reserve wine separate, so we have a large choice on our palette. And it's a question. And what is fascinating is that you change slightly the proportion of one of it, and it changes the feeling.
Totally.
It's incredible, but it's sometimes very frustrating, because you are there to blend for the rosé, or to blend for this one, of course, for the Blanc de Noir, and.
So it's really something very special. It's really something special, and it's you have to learn it. You have to have a feeling, and and you at the end it must be a signature of your house. Exactly. But if we come now a little bit to the end of our session, so for perhaps in really one sentence, what is the sense for you of champagne, And what do you give to our audience? Which advice do you give to your audience, to our audience today? What should they do with champagne, or what is your advice? Charline, the youngest one, 1 sentence, 2 sentences.
I guess for me, first, I'm well, in 1 sentence, I'm really at the beginning of the process. So I cannot say that I have too much ambition, but I guess I'm just seeing myself as to share a sort of an emotion, at least for us at Drappier, with the feeling of discovery and audacity. I think that's also very much the identity of our house. So really sharing the generosity of this wine and the diversity. That's what fascinates the most in what we're doing every day.
Mm-hmm. But I think you're really a very good representative of your family. You're really, you have really the heart of Champagne and of the Aube, and so I think you are really in a very, very good way and a good representative of your family house. Okay, Vitalie, what is your suggestion?
For me, Champagne, and not only Taittinger, it's a wine which has a special dimension, which drives you to yourself. I think I never saw a wine opening the people like Champagne is able to do. And I think that Champagne is probably the only wine to give the happiness to people at the first sip. So for me, Champagne is this magical, this magical happening, just doing that. Mm-hmm. And Taittinger, I love Taittinger because of the light of the wines and their energy, their precision. I love that. This is our house, the Chardonnay.
Okay.
On top of, of course, I share all what I have said, but I would say Champagne is about sharing and pleasure. And I would say don't be intimidated by Champagne and by history and by everything. No, Champagne is instant pleasure, and you find always more and more. So cheers.
Cheers. Yeah, for me, Champagne is really a feeling, it's an emotion, and you have to share. And I think in this difficult pandemic times, it's very important to have some joy and some nice moments. And to open a bottle, it's really a great joy. So let us say cheers to everybody, and hopefully we see us in Champagne, not so far, not in 2 years, but hopefully in the next year, that we can travel again, because everyone is now in his house, and share it, taste it whenever you can, and so say cheers.
Cheers.
Cheers. And don't forget, if you want to have more information, go on the website La Transmission, Femmes en Champagne. You find on the website every information about these famous women, and with everything. And I think it will be very nice. So cheers to all. Bye bye. See you next time. Bye bye. 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 Bye.
Bye.